Lou, this is Jackie.
Hello.
And this is Rebecca Harold. She is the
Hello.
privacy professor, and we're going to talk about something that is getting all kinds of attention now.
Yes, with the Wikileaks. I mean, 2 days ago, turn on the TV and you hear that Wikileaks dumped a bunch of CIA data out for the whole world to get to.
And we're talking massive documents.
Massive. Well, they said it was around 8,000 pages. And what Wikileaks claims is that this is just 1% of all the other data that they claim to have obtained. They don't say how.
I was going to say, how do they do this? They do it on a regular basis.
It seems like it, doesn't it? So this really points out the need for, well, it points out a lot of needs, but number one, the government needs to do a better job of having oversight for their own workers, because a lot of times it's an insider who's trusted with access to all these different types of data that decided, maybe I'll make some good money by actually getting all of this data and giving it to someone else that they'll put it online then. Or maybe there's some sort of advocate of, letting the public know that there's bad things going on, like Edward Snowden back a few years ago at the NSA. So this kind of reminds me of what went on at the NSA, only this is the CIA, and now it's a much larger pot of data. At least that's what WikiLeaks is
I was going to say, has it been proven that they did get anything that is substantial that we should be concerned about, or are they just making this claim?
Yeah, well, actually it's interesting. So the officials in the government are saying, yeah, a lot of this does seem legitimate, but they don't know if there have been changes in some of the data or not. And they don't know where the data came from. So it might have come from hacking into the CIA and sucking all that data out.
Extracting it out.
Or it could have come through someone who's an insider and decided that they're going to give this to someone. And that's what they're very secretive. WikiLeaks does not tell who gives them all of this data. So a lot of folks in the intelligence agencies are thinking, now we know in the past that WikiLeaks has gotten data from other countries, such as Russia, at least that's what they believe, Russia or some other countries, to use against us. I mean, just think about the history of propaganda throughout many decades, and think about what they're pointing out in this dump of data that we have right now.
What's the primary focus of the latest batch of data that came down?
Yeah, so right now the focus really is they're pointing to the fact, or what they're saying is the fact, that there's a lot of data that shows that the CIA and other intelligence agencies have all of these different types of tools that they are using on our smartphones, on our smart refrigerators, any of those IoT devices that we've been talking about for the past 3 years now that have a lot of vulnerabilities. So what it's claiming is that the government uses what's called zero-day vulnerabilities. Zero-day vulnerabilities are basically those vulnerabilities that no one has discovered yet. And so when somebody learns about them, they know nobody else knows that there's vulnerabilities. So they take advantage by taking those vulnerabilities and putting malware or spyware into the devices that have those vulnerabilities so that they can get data.
It's like an open door into a building.
Yeah.
They found an open door, and so
like a trap door into a building.
That'd be a better explanation of it. Yeah. And so they are just trying to load it up with as much information and much stuff as they can until someone discovers it and closes it.
Right, if they ever do discover it.
If they ever do discover it.
So that's the thing. Now, what's important, though, it's really interesting because I have friends in the intelligence agencies and some who used to work there, and they're like, oh, come on, this is being such a big deal being made of this, because everyone knows that the CIA, NSA, FBI, and the other intelligence agencies, this is what they do. They go out and they gather data. But the other folks who are outside of there in the other types of privacy groups and so on are saying, oh my gosh, we have all of this stuff going on everybody's devices. So I think an important point here is the fact that by law, the CIA, the FBI, NSA, they can only put these types of surveillance tools within these devices that have vulnerabilities through a FISA court warrant, meaning they have to identify someone specifically that they suspect of doing things with foreign countries that puts the U.S. at risk, and then after they get that warrant, then they put those in there.
To gather the data that they need.
So we shouldn't freak out if we're starting to hear stories of them being able to hear us through our TVs and things like that. We shouldn't be at an all-time alert freak-out mode.
Right. We shouldn't think that the government's doing that, but it kind of harkens back to what we've talked about, the fact that we know that those types of devices are vulnerable because we've talked about how they don't use passwords, they aren't encrypted. So just because the government's not doing it everywhere, now what this does point out is the fact that, well, these vulnerabilities are there. We know cyber crooks could have been using them all this time too, not just the government, but now that they've dumped all of this information out for the world to see, now these tools can be available for other cyber crooks to learn from. So that makes it more important for us to make sure that our devices are secure. But not only that, the folks in the government intelligence agencies are saying, well, yeah, now the other countries like Russia and China and so on, who also do intelligence, well, now they have insight into what we've been doing. So now that they know what we're doing, they can quick patch their systems and put up blocks so that we can't take advantage of those.
Now, not everybody, Jackie mentioned the smart TVs. That's the one that seems to get the most attention now. Because people thought, well, you're watching TV and they're listening to everything that you have going on. How does that affect things like those little Amazon devices that listen to everything that you say? Where's it going to take it with those things?
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up because we've already had situations where you've had the Alexa data that has been used in different court cases to see if someone was actually, you know, in the house doing things when they said they were. We've already had court cases using pacemaker data and the smart pacemakers to see if someone whose house was on fire and they said, oh, we tried to put the fire out, but you know, we couldn't. Well, they looked at the pacemaker data and they saw that the heart wasn't going at the rate that it would have been going if someone was frantically trying to. So we're already there, and we've been there for a while. The smart TV issue is something that we started talking about 2 years ago when it was first introduced. So it's something that now brings it back to our attention again. And for your viewers, I think it really helps them to see that they have to start taking ownership of their own privacy and not assuming that the technology companies have fully secure devices that you're using.
And
so they
one of
need
the
to
things
demand that.
too, speaking of secure devices, don't forget about this. I know it's a pain. It's a pain to put the passwords and do the real extensive ones, but you've been talking about this since you first came on here. You need to do it.
Yeah, two-factor, use two-factor for that. It takes just a little bit longer, so it's not that bad. But you know, as we were talking about too, even in hotel rooms now, you have smart devices. I know when I travel, and I travel a lot, I notice if we have a TV that also has wireless accessibility and it attaches to the hotel Wi-Fi. So, you know, it's okay to be paranoid. I unplug it, unplug all the connections when I go to sleep or when I'm doing work, so that's okay.
All right, people want some more information on things we were talking about. They can go to this site, can't they?
Definitely go to simis360.com. That's where I help my business that I help different types of organizations to identify these risks and then to put up different protections to keep their customers and patients' data protected so that, you know, we can compensate to the vulnerabilities in technology.
Now, people have general questions for you as well. Where can they get a hold of you there?
They can also go here. There's a little question mark on there. If they click on it, they can submit that question, and then I'll answer them. I've gotten a lot of questions from your viewers, so I welcome those because oftentimes the questions make me think of a good topic to come back and
well, it's a conversation we need to continue to have. So thank you, Rebecca, for being here this morning.
Thank you.
And Privacy Prof on Twitter. Follow along and you'll learn something every single day.